As the clock ticks down to January 19th, TikTok is on the brink of a potential ban in the United States. The law that requires the social media giant to find a new non-Chinese owner or face a shutdown is set to go into effect this Sunday, leaving millions of Americans in suspense about the future of the popular platform. TikTok, with its massive user base of 170 million Americans, has grown into an essential tool for finding entertainment, news, and building communities, with some creators even using it as a platform for business ventures. The stakes couldn't be higher, especially as TikTok has become one of the few new platforms in recent years to challenge established social media giants such as Instagram and YouTube. On Friday, the Supreme Court upheld the law, inching the country closer to the implementation of the ban. In response, TikTok issued a statement, warning that unless the Biden administration provides clarity and assurance on the future of the platform, it will be forced to shut down on January 19th. The statement put pressure on both the government and the tech industry, highlighting the uncertainty surrounding the platform's future. What's at stake here is not only the ability of millions of Americans to access the app for fun and leisure, but also the livelihoods of creators who rely on TikTok for their careers. The fate of the app also impacts the wider tech and entertainment industries, which have adapted to the platform's massive popularity. From influencers to businesses, TikTok has become a cornerstone of modern digital culture. However, as the clock runs out, the possibility of a forced sale or shutdown becomes increasingly likely. The central issue driving the looming ban centers around national security concerns. U.S. officials have raised alarms about the potential for TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, to be pressured by the Chinese government to hand over sensitive user data. This could be used for espionage or to further the Chinese government's geopolitical interests. While there is no concrete evidence of wrongdoing, concerns remain that the app could be exploited for such purposes, exacerbated by China's broad national security laws that allow the government to demand data from companies operating within its borders. The U.S. government has taken measures in the past to address these concerns, with President Biden signing a law in April that required TikTok to sell its operations to a non-Chinese entity or face a potential ban. This law gained bipartisan support in Congress, passing the House of Representatives with a 360-58 vote. It then moved quickly through the Senate, where it was bundled with funding for military equipment in Ukraine and missile defense for Israel, putting pressure on lawmakers to approve it as a package. Despite these efforts, the looming ban could still be postponed or delayed depending on the outcome of the Biden administration's final days in office and the actions of the incoming Trump administration. The official position of the Biden administration is that TikTok should remain in American hands, but the timing of the law's implementation leaves little room for resolution before Trump takes office on January 20th, just a day after the deadline. The fact that TikTok might be able to avoid an immediate ban depends on whether the Trump administration steps in with its own interpretation of the law or issues guidance to the tech industry. At this stage, no definitive answer has been provided by either administration. So, what exactly will happen to TikTok on January 19th? That's still unclear. The app could be pulled from Apple's and Google's app stores, meaning new users would be unable to download it. However, current users could still access the app, but it would no longer receive updates, potentially leading to glitches and malfunctions over time. The lack of clarity from the government is complicating the situation further, leaving users unsure about what to expect. TikTok has said it will be forced to go dark unless it receives clear guidance from the Biden administration. The question that remains for many Americans is whether or not they will still be able to access the app on Sunday night. A Biden administration official confirmed that it will be up to the next president to enforce the law, potentially leaving the fate of the platform in limbo. The incoming Trump administration could potentially delay or attempt to renegotiate aspects of the law, particularly if TikTok and ByteDance continue to negotiate a potential sale to an American company. As of now, there is little evidence to suggest that TikTok will be able to make the sale in time, though the law does allow for a 90-day extension if substantial progress is made on the sale. The possible sale of TikTok could significantly impact the future of the platform. One potential buyer is a group led by billionaire Frank McCourt, who previously owned the Los Angeles Dodgers. McCourt and his group, including investor Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank fame, have made an offer to purchase TikTok's U.S. operations from ByteDance. This bid, however, would exclude the platform's prized algorithm, which China is unlikely to allow to be sold. The absence of the algorithm would fundamentally change the way TikTok operates, as it is the engine that powers the app's highly successful For You feed, which drives user engagement and discovery. Another possible scenario involves Elon Musk, owner of X, formerly Twitter, who has reportedly discussed purchasing TikTok's U.S. assets. However, this proposal has been dismissed as pure fiction by TikTok, and there has been no official comment from Musk or ByteDance on the matter. If a deal with either McCourt's group or Musk were to go through, it's likely that TikTok would have to restructure its platform in the United States, rebuilding the For You algorithm and creating a new version of the app without the influence of China-based oversight. If a sale is successful, it could keep the app alive in the United States, but it would undoubtedly change the user experience. Without the original algorithm, TikTok could struggle to maintain the same level of engagement and success it currently enjoys. This could lead to a fractured app ecosystem where US users need a different version of the app than the rest of the world. Moreover, such a shift would likely have implications for creators, brands, and businesses that rely on the app's powerful engagement tools. Despite the uncertainty surrounding TikTok's fate, the app's worth remains substantial. TikTok's US assets are estimated to be worth between $40 billion and $50 billion, although the exact value is difficult to determine, given the importance of its algorithm. McCourt's group has made a formal offer, but ByteDance has yet to respond to it in any meaningful way. TikTok CEO Shou Chew remains in communication with U.S. lawmakers and officials, but until the Supreme Court ruling, the future remains uncertain. As the deadline approaches, the most pressing question remains what will happen to the millions of Americans who rely on TikTok for entertainment, connection, and work. Will they still be able to access the app? Will creators lose their platforms overnight? And ultimately, what does the future hold for social media in the United States as a whole? At this stage, it's impossible to predict whether TikTok will find a solution in time to avert a ban, or if the US will face a social media landscape forever altered by the disappearance of one of its most influential platforms. One thing is clear, TikTok has changed the game for social media, and whatever happens in the coming days will have far-reaching consequences for the tech industry, the US economy, and the global digital landscape. The issue surrounding TikTok's potential ban has escalated in recent weeks, bringing attention to both national security concerns and the possible impact on millions of Americans who use the app daily. TikTok, which boasts over 170 million users in the United States alone, has become a source of community, creativity, and connection for many, but its ties to China have sparked a significant debate. The Biden administration has been vocal in expressing its concerns over the app's data collection practices, citing the risk of personal information being accessed by the Chinese government. The fears stem from two primary arguments, one involving potential blackmail material derived from personal data and another concerning the possibility of content manipulation that could promote Chinese government interests. The TikTok case reached a new phase when the Supreme Court issued a ruling that allowed the pending ban on the app to proceed. Despite the court acknowledging the app's importance as a means of expression and engagement for millions of Americans, the justices ultimately sided with national security concerns, asserting that Congress had already determined the necessity of divestiture. In essence, Congress had mandated that TikTok must either sell to American buyers or face the looming ban. However, there is no clear precedent for how such a ban could be enforced, and the practical implications of blocking a major social media platform have raised numerous questions. The Biden administration, which signed a bipartisan law in April requiring TikTok's sale by Sunday, has made it clear that it will not take further action to enforce the ban. Instead, the enforcement of the ban is now left to the incoming administration of President-elect Donald Trump, who is set to take office on Monday. The ambiguity surrounding this transition has led to increased uncertainty for TikTok's future in the U.S. With the deadline approaching and no firm guarantees from the Biden administration or the incoming Trump administration, TikTok executives are grappling with how to proceed while minimizing potential legal and financial consequences. TikTok's position has been that it needs more clarity and assurance from the government before it can ensure its continued operation. The company has expressed concerns over service providers such as Google and Apple, who would face heavy fines if they continue to host TikTok after the ban takes effect. TikTok has requested that the Biden administration provide definitive statements assuring service providers that they will not be penalized for hosting the app over the weekend. Without such guarantees, TikTok has warned that it may be forced to shut down its operations in the U.S. on Sunday, January 19, only to potentially resume them later if the incoming Trump administration provides the necessary assurances. TikTok's efforts to keep its platform operational in the U.S. reflect the complex intersection of national security, free speech, and global business practices. TikTok CEO Shou Chew's statements suggest that the company will continue to fight for its right to exist in the U.S., emphasizing the constitutional right to free speech that the app enables for millions of users. This is not just about an app, It's about the right of individuals to express themselves, create, and connect, according to Chu. TikTok is actively seeking solutions to continue offering these opportunities to Americans, even as the legal landscape remains in flux. Despite the Supreme Court's decision, the app's future is uncertain, especially in light of Trump's recent comments suggesting that he will play a key role in deciding the app's fate. In an interview with CNN, Trump indicated that the decision would ultimately be in his hands and that he would make the call on whether to uphold the ban or extend the timeline for TikTok to find a buyer. Trump's comments have fueled speculation about the possibility of a delay or reversal of the ban, especially as some lawmakers and business leaders have suggested that TikTok may need more time to work out a deal with an American buyer. However, the pressure is mounting as the Sunday deadline approaches, and TikTok's users and stakeholders are anxiously awaiting further clarification from both the Biden and Trump administrations. The legal battle over TikTok is not just a U.S. issue, it has international ramifications as well. China has been closely monitoring the developments surrounding the app, and there are broader implications for the global tech industry. The U.S. government's stance on TikTok could set a precedent for how other nations handle the regulation of foreign-owned digital platforms, particularly in the context of national security concerns. The case also raises important questions about the role of data privacy, international trade, and the power of governments to regulate the flow of information in an increasingly connected world. In the meantime, TikTok is making every effort to ensure that its users, especially the content creators who have built their careers on the platform, are not left in the dark. The company has reiterated its commitment to its user base, stressing that it will do everything in its power to keep the app accessible to Americans. TikTok has also been vocal in its gratitude to President Trump for his willingness to work with the company to find a solution that addresses the national security concerns while allowing TikTok to remain operational in the U.S. However, the situation remains fluid, and much depends on the actions of the incoming administration. While the Biden administration has said it will not enforce the ban before Trump takes office, it has also made it clear that it expects the new administration to take responsibility for implementing the law. The law itself is somewhat vague in terms of enforcement, and the Department of Justice is unlikely to take action over the holiday weekend. Nevertheless, TikTok's legal team continues to seek assurances that the app will not face immediate enforcement and that there will be room for further negotiations in the coming weeks. Ultimately, the fate of TikTok in the U.S. hinges on a combination of legal, political, and business factors. The app's users and the tech industry at large are watching closely to see how this situation unfolds. It could set a significant precedent for how other social media platforms are treated in the future, especially as governments around the world continue to grapple with the complex issues of data privacy, national security, and the power of tech companies. Whether TikTok will remain a central part of the social media landscape in the US or be forced to shut down remains uncertain, but the stakes are high, and the outcome will likely have lasting implications for both TikTok and the broader tech ecosystem. The U.S. Supreme Court's recent decision regarding TikTok has ignited a passionate debate about the intersection of national security concerns, free speech, and the regulation of digital platforms. The ruling, though narrow in its focus on TikTok's specific vulnerabilities and connections to China, sets the stage for future decisions that could have far-reaching implications not just for TikTok, but for how governments around the world regulate technology companies that operate on a global scale. The court's acknowledgement of the inherent narrowness of its ruling reveals the complex nature of this case, emphasizing that similar situations involving other tech companies might yield very different legal conclusions. This nuanced stance is important because it points to the evolving nature of digital law in the face of new technologies, foreign influence, and the protection of national interests. At the heart of the case was the growing concern over TikTok's ownership by a Chinese parent company, ByteDance, and the fear that the Chinese government could use its influence over the platform to access vast amounts of personal data collected from American users. This concern is not unique to TikTok. Many platforms collect an extensive range of data on users, from location information to browsing habits, social interactions, and even biometric data. However, TikTok's sheer scale and its susceptibility to foreign influence through its Chinese ownership have heightened national security concerns to an unprecedented level. The court noted that, while data collection is a common practice across digital platforms, the vast amounts of sensitive personal data collected by TikTok, coupled with the potential for foreign adversaries to control or manipulate that data, justified a more stringent approach to regulation. This differential treatment stems from the need to address the unique risks posed by foreign influence in a highly interconnected digital world. The ruling's cautionary tone was also evident in its acknowledgement that the case involved new technologies with transformative capabilities. TikTok is not just a social media platform. It is a cultural phenomenon that has transformed how people communicate, share information, and create content. For millions of young users, TikTok is a primary means of self-expression, social interaction, and even economic activity. The platform's ability to influence public opinion, shape cultural trends, and act as a powerful tool for activism has made it a global player in the digital space. As such, the court recognized the need for careful legal consideration in cases involving technology companies that operate on such a massive scale. The ruling reflects the challenges courts face in applying traditional legal frameworks to a rapidly evolving technological landscape, where the lines between national security, privacy, free speech, and corporate interests are increasingly blurred. Justice Neil Gorsuch's concurring opinion added another layer of complexity to the ruling by questioning the level of scrutiny applied to the case. Gorsuch, known for his commitment to strict constitutional interpretation, expressed concerns that the court may not have applied the most rigorous standard of judicial review, known as strict scrutiny. This standard is typically used in cases that involve significant constitutional rights, such as freedom of speech or religion, and requires the government to demonstrate a compelling interest in regulating or restricting those rights. Gorsuch argued that strict scrutiny might have been more appropriate given the fundamental First Amendment issues at stake, particularly since TikTok is a platform for free expression. Despite his reservations, Gorsuch ultimately agreed with the court's decision, reasoning that even under strict scrutiny, the government had sufficiently proven the national security risks posed by TikTok's foreign ownership. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, in her own concurring opinion, also highlighted the First Amendment concerns raised by the case. While she agreed with the court's judgment, she expressed dissatisfaction with the court's decision to assume without deciding that the law implicated the First Amendment. This approach, according to Sotomayor, overlooks the established precedent that the First Amendment is directly relevant in cases involving restrictions on speech and expression. Sotomayor's comments underscore a fundamental tension that runs throughout the case: the need to protect national security while preserving the constitutional right to free speech. The First Amendment protects the right to freely exchange ideas, and digital platforms like TikTok have become central to that right. For millions of users, TikTok is not just a place to watch videos. It is a space for political expression, creativity, and even dissent. Sotomayor's opinion raises the important question of how the government can regulate foreign-owned platforms without infringing on individuals' rights to communicate freely. Sotomayor's remarks also point to a broader concern about the implications of the ruling for future cases involving digital platforms. The court's decision in this case could have a chilling effect on other platforms that serve as vital spaces for free expression, particularly for marginalized communities and political activists. While the government's interest in national security is undeniably important, Sotomayor's opinion suggests that courts must be careful to protect individual rights in the process. Her dissent highlights the need for a more nuanced approach to balancing national security concerns with the fundamental rights of American citizens to express themselves online. This case has significant implications for the broader debate about the regulation of foreign-owned tech companies operating in the U.S. The rise of Chinese tech companies in particular has prompted concerns about the potential for espionage and data theft, with TikTok being one of the most high-profile examples. In response to these concerns, the U.S. government has taken steps to pressure TikTok to sell its U.S. operations to an American company or face a potential ban. TikTok has already implemented a number of measures to address these concerns, including establishing data storage centers in the U.S. and instituting stronger oversight of its data practices. However, these efforts have done little to quell fears that TikTok remains vulnerable to Chinese government influence. The court's decision provides a legal framework for addressing these concerns, but it also raises questions about the limits of government power in regulating foreign-owned platforms. Beyond TikTok, this case signals a broader trend toward increased scrutiny of foreign tech companies and their role in the U.S. market. As digital platforms continue to grow in influence and reach, governments around the world will need to navigate the complex terrain of regulating these companies without stifling innovation or infringing on individual rights. This case also highlights the growing role of national security in shaping tech policy, as countries grapple with the potential risks posed by foreign-owned platforms that collect sensitive data on users. In the future, we may see more countries adopting similar approaches to TikTok, imposing stricter regulations on foreign-owned platforms and requiring greater transparency about data practices. The court's decision could also set a precedent for how future cases involving digital platforms are handled. As more platforms from around the world enter the U.S. market, courts will likely be called upon to address the delicate balance between national security and free speech. The TikTok case underscores the need for a clear legal framework that can guide decisions about how to regulate foreign-owned tech companies without unduly restricting the rights of American citizens. For TikTok and its millions of users, the court's ruling is a reminder of the precarious nature of digital platforms in the modern world. The platform's future in the U.S. remains uncertain, with the possibility of a ban or further regulatory measures looming. TikTok has vowed to continue fighting the decision, and the company's legal team is already preparing to appeal or negotiate with the government in order to preserve its operations in the U.S. The outcome of this case could have far-reaching consequences for TikTok, but it could also set a critical precedent for how future digital platforms are regulated in the U.S. and around the world. As we move into an increasingly digital future, the regulation of tech companies will be a critical issue for governments and courts alike. The TikTok case marks just the beginning of a larger conversation about the role of technology in our lives and the need to balance innovation with security and individual rights. The challenges posed by foreign influence over digital platforms are complex, and they will require careful thought and consideration as we navigate the intersection of technology, privacy, free speech, and national security. The legal and political debates sparked by this case are likely to shape the future of digital regulation for years to come, influencing everything from social media policies to data privacy laws and beyond. As this saga unfolds, it will be interesting to see how lawmakers, tech companies, and civil rights organizations respond to the issues raised by the TikTok case. The outcome will likely set the tone for future legal battles over the regulation of foreign-owned digital platforms and their role in global commerce. Whether TikTok will remain operational in the U.S. or face further restrictions, the implications of this case will be felt far beyond the confines of the platform itself, affecting the entire landscape of digital technology regulation moving forward. TikTok, the widely popular short-form video platform that has taken the world by storm, finds itself at a crucial juncture in January 2025. As the social media giant faces a potential ban in the United States, the situation has become increasingly complex, with legal battles, political maneuvering, and national security concerns all playing a central role. The fate of TikTok in the U.S. now hinges on a pivotal decision made by the Supreme Court. On January 19, the court upheld a controversial law passed by Congress in 2024, which mandates that ByteDance, the Chinese parent company behind TikTok, either divest from the app or face a ban in the U.S. market. This ruling has created a deep sense of uncertainty for TikTok's 170 million American users, as well as businesses, influencers, and content creators who rely on the platform for personal and professional success. The law, which was passed with overwhelming bipartisan support in the U.S. Congress, reflects growing concerns among lawmakers and security officials about the potential national security risks posed by TikTok's Chinese ownership. The U.S. government has raised alarms about the possibility that TikTok could be used by the Chinese government to collect sensitive data from American users or to influence political opinions. This fear has been exacerbated by the fact that ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok, is headquartered in Beijing, and its ties to the Chinese Communist Party have raised questions about whether the app could be used as a tool for espionage or propaganda. As part of the legislation, Congress set a deadline for ByteDance to sell its U.S. operations or face a ban on TikTok in the U.S. market. This law has put the app's future in serious jeopardy, forcing TikTok to explore all possible avenues for compliance. However, despite intense lobbying efforts and legal challenges from TikTok's lawyers, the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 in favor of upholding the law, dismissing TikTok's arguments regarding potential violations of its constitutional rights. This decision marks a major milestone in the ongoing political and legal saga surrounding TikTok's place in the U.S. market. The ruling has now set in motion a chain of events that could see TikTok disappearing from American smartphones if it is unable to find a way to comply with the law's requirements. The decision is likely to have far-reaching implications not only for TikTok but for the broader tech industry and U.S. foreign policy as well. President Joe Biden, who signed the law into effect, has long expressed concerns about the national security risks posed by Chinese tech companies. Although Biden has refrained from taking drastic steps against TikTok, he has largely supported efforts to address the potential threats posed by the platform. In a statement following the Supreme Court ruling, Biden reiterated his position, noting that the government has a responsibility to protect American citizens from foreign influence while also respecting individual freedoms and rights. At the same time, Biden's administration has recognized TikTok's massive role in American culture and business, especially for the younger demographic, making the potential consequences of a ban even more profound. TikTok has built a significant following in the US, with millions of Americans relying on the app for entertainment, education, and social connection. Influencers, artists, businesses, and creators have flocked to the platform, using it to reach vast audiences, promote products, and grow their personal brands. TikTok has become a central part of modern digital culture, especially among younger generations. Small businesses have increasingly turned to TikTok as a cost-effective way to advertise and gain traction. For many of these creators and entrepreneurs, the possibility of TikTok being banned is an existential threat to their livelihoods, and they have rallied behind efforts to prevent a shutdown of the app. At the heart of the legal challenges against the law is TikTok's assertion that the legislation represents an infringement of its constitutional rights. The platform has strongly argued that the law violates the First Amendment, which protects freedom of speech. TikTok's lawyers have contended that the app is a vehicle for free expression and that the U.S. government should not be in the business of regulating which platforms can operate based on the country of origin of the company that owns them. TikTok has also argued that ByteDance has made significant efforts to ensure the security and privacy of American users, including investing in data storage solutions within the U.S. and taking steps to comply with American laws and regulations. Despite these arguments, the Supreme Court sided with the government's view that the law is justified on national security grounds. The court reasoned that the legislation is content-neutral and that its purpose is not to restrict free speech but rather to address the potential security risks posed by foreign-owned companies controlling platforms that collect vast amounts of data on American citizens. The court also noted that the law's provisions were not aimed at targeting specific forms of speech or expression but at mitigating the risks of foreign interference in the digital space. As a result of this ruling, the pressure is now squarely on TikTok and ByteDance to find a way to either divest from the platform's U.S. operations or face the prospect of the app being banned altogether. The issue has now taken center stage in the political arena, with President Donald Trump, who is set to return to the White House in 2025, playing a key role in determining TikTok's fate. During his previous presidency, Trump attempted to ban TikTok, citing national security concerns and the app's Chinese ownership. However, his efforts were thwarted by legal challenges and court rulings that prevented a complete shutdown of the app. Trump's administration initiated efforts to force ByteDance to sell TikTok's U.S. operations to an American company, but these efforts were also met with resistance. Now, with Trump preparing to take office again, he has signaled that he may take a different approach. He has publicly acknowledged that TikTok played a significant role in his 2024 campaign, particularly in connecting with younger voters, and he has suggested that he might find a way to save the app. Trump's position on TikTok has evolved since the earlier attempts to ban the platform. He has expressed his intention to protect TikTok's continued operation while addressing concerns about national security. The president has stated that he intends to review the situation thoroughly before making any final decisions and will seek to find a balance between safeguarding American interests and ensuring that TikTok remains available to users. Trump has also mentioned that he had discussions with Chinese President Xi Jinping about the issue, underscoring the geopolitical dimensions of the controversy. Trump's willingness to reconsider the issue could be a pivotal moment in determining TikTok's future in the U.S. TikTok CEO Shou Zi Chew has been active in advocating for the platform's continued operation in the U.S. He released a public statement urging President Trump to consider the app's importance to American users and businesses and underscored TikTok's commitment to user privacy and security. In the statement, Chew thanked President Trump for his consideration and outlined the steps TikTok has taken to ensure compliance with U.S. laws. These measures include the storage of American user data on U.S. soil, transparency reports, and third-party audits to assess data privacy practices. Chew has emphasized that TikTok is not an agent of the Chinese government and that it operates as an independent company, albeit one with significant international ties. Meanwhile, the U.S. government, through Attorney General Merrick Garland, has firmly defended the law, asserting that TikTok's potential risks to national security outweigh the concerns about free speech and economic impact. Garland argued that TikTok's massive influence over American users, coupled with its Chinese ownership, creates an unacceptable vulnerability that could be exploited for geopolitical purposes. He reiterated that the government's primary responsibility is to protect its citizens, and that includes ensuring that foreign entities do not control platforms that could be used for espionage or interference in domestic affairs. Garland has also underscored that the law was carefully crafted to address the national security risk without specifically targeting freedom of speech or expression. The debate over TikTok's future has also sparked wider discussions about the role of government in regulating tech companies, especially those with foreign ownership. Critics of the ban have pointed out that other major tech companies such as Facebook, Google, and Twitter have also faced privacy and security concerns over the years, but none have been subject to the same level of scrutiny as TikTok. Some argue that the ban is part of a broader effort to control the digital economy and stifle foreign competition in the tech space. The case has raised important questions about whether it is appropriate for the U.S. government to impose such drastic measures on foreign companies, particularly when those companies have millions of American users who rely on their services for communication, entertainment, and business. As the clock ticks down toward the January 19th deadline, the future of TikTok in the U.S. hangs in the balance. If the app is banned, it will be a major disruption to the digital landscape with profound consequences for millions of users, businesses, and influencers. The tech industry will also be closely watching the case, as the precedent set by the ruling could shape the future of government regulation of foreign-owned tech companies. Whether TikTok survives or is shut down, the controversy surrounding the app has sparked important conversations about the intersection of technology, national security, and individual rights in the digital age. As TikTok's fate remains uncertain, the platform's 170 million American users, businesses, content creators, and influencers are all anxiously awaiting the final decision. The outcome of this legal battle will not only shape the future of TikTok but also have a lasting impact on the broader digital ecosystem and how foreign tech companies are treated in the U.S. Whether TikTok remains operational or is forced to shut down, the situation has revealed the growing tensions between the U.S. and China over control of the digital economy, the risks associated with global data flows, and the challenges of ensuring both security and free expression in an increasingly interconnected world.